The grave was not where she expected to end. Catherine Parr, the clever, devout, and long-suffering last wife of Henry VIII, thought she had finally found peace. After surviving one of the most dangerous marriages in English history, she died quietly in 1548, far from the menace of the Tudor court. But what happened to her after death was anything but peaceful. Her body would be unearthed, her remains prodded and displayed, her final rest torn apart in ways as gruesome as they were shocking. This is the horrific afterlife of a queen who once outlived Henry himself. Catherine's life had always been a gamble with fate. She was twice widowed before the king set his sights on her, and she never sought the crown. Yet Henry demanded her hand, and in the Tudor world, refusal was not an option. Unlike Anne Boleyn or Catherine Howard, she avoided the executioner's blade, but she came dangerously close. Her outspoken support for Protestant reform made her enemies at court. At one point, the king even signed an arrest warrant against her. But Catherine's intelligence saved her. She soothed his suspicions, argued that her debates were merely to distract him from his illnesses, and won back his favor. In that moment, she narrowly escaped a fate shared by two of her predecessors. When Henry died in 1547, Catherine was free at last, or so it seemed. She quickly married the man she had truly loved, Thomas Seymour, the brother of Jane Seymour, Henry's third wife. For a brief moment, happiness appeared within reach, but Catherine's final year was marred by scandal and betrayal. Seymour's ambitions were dangerous, and his household was filled with whispers of inappropriate behavior toward the young Princess Elizabeth. Catherine, now pregnant at last in her 30s, endured gossip and tension in her home at Sudeley Castle. She gave birth to a daughter, Mary, but the joy was short-lived. Just days later, Catherine was struck down by childbed fever, the cruel fate of many women of her time. She died crying out against her husband, accusing him of having poisoned her. Whether her delirium was the result of illness or a flash of truth, no one could say. Catherine Parr was buried at Sudeley Castle in a simple ceremony. She was the only one of Henry's wives to be laid to rest in Gloucestershire rather than London. The grave was modest, and perhaps she might have remained there, undisturbed. But history was not kind to her memory. The first desecration came over a century later during the English Civil War. Sudeley Castle was battered by parliamentary forces and left in ruins. Catherine's tomb was forgotten, her resting place crumbling into obscurity. Then, in the 18th century, workers stumbled upon a lead coffin in the castle grounds. Curiosity got the better of them, and they pried it open. What they found stunned them. The body of a Tudor queen, preserved almost perfectly, her skin still soft, her hair still visible. For a fleeting moment, it seemed a miracle, a glimpse across 2 centuries. But reverence soon gave way to fascination, and fascination to carelessness. According to reports, drunken revelers once dragged her body from the coffin and mocked her in a grotesque display. One witness wrote of a man who seized her remains, hoisted them upright, and danced with her lifeless form across the floor. Others beat the fragile body as though it were nothing more than a prop, blows raining down on the queen who had once sat beside Henry VIII. In a shocking act of mutilation, an iron rod was thrust through her chest, destroying the miraculous preservation of her flesh. The queen who had survived the violence of Henry's court was finally undone by the violence of posterity. Again and again, over the following decades, her coffin was disturbed. Each time it was opened, her body deteriorated further. Visitors cut away pieces of her hair, clothing, and pulled out teeth as morbid souvenirs. At one point, the lid was left off entirely, exposing her remains to the air until the once intact figure collapsed into decay. As if that were not enough, she was buried upside down, her coffin mishandled, her body treated with careless indifference. Each reopening left her more broken, until what had once seemed like a miracle of preservation was reduced to fragments. No other Queen of England has suffered such humiliation after death. Catherine Parr, who had once ruled as regent, who had guided Henry's kingdom and shaped its future, was left dishonored in the ground, her body desecrated for centuries. Eventually, Catherine was reinterred more respectfully. After the repeated desecrations and grotesque mistreatment of her corpse, her remains were gathered and placed in a proper tomb inside the restored chapel of Sudeley Castle during the 19th century. She now rests in a canopied neo-Gothic tomb, with an effigy carved of her likeness, surrounded by inscriptions that honor her as Queen of England and the sixth wife of Henry VIII. Perhaps the most haunting part of Catherine Parr's legacy is not her life, but what came after. Her daughter, Mary Seymour, the child she had longed for, disappeared into the shadows of history. No records of her adulthood exist. No monument bears her name. Did she die as a forgotten infant, another casualty of Tudor fragility? Or did she live hidden away, her lineage considered too dangerous to acknowledge in a kingdom rife with suspicion? The silence of the archives offers no answer. The line of Catherine Parr, the last wife of Henry VIII, simply vanished, swallowed whole by time. And yet, even Catherine herself was not permitted peace in death. Instead of lying undisturbed in her quiet grave at Sudeley Castle, her body became a grotesque spectacle. For centuries, her coffin was pried open again and again, each intrusion stripping away another layer of dignity. What began as awe at her astonishing preservation turned quickly to desecration. Her corpse was dragged out, manhandled, even danced with by drunken revelers, who treated a Queen of England as nothing more than a curiosity. She was beaten, pierced with iron, her remains subjected to humiliation after humiliation until even her burial was mishandled, her body left upside down in the earth. Catherine Parr, who had survived Henry VIII's suspicions and the lethal intrigues of his court, endured in death a fate far more horrifying than the axe that had claimed two of her predecessors. Her story forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth. History does not end at the grave. Sometimes death is only the beginning of another, more grotesque chapter. Catherine Parr's afterlife became a carnival of disrespect, her tomb a theater of cruelty. While Anne Boleyn is remembered for her execution and Catherine Howard for her downfall, Catherine Parr is too often dismissed as the one who survived. But what does survival mean when the peace she sought in death was denied so violently? And yet, despite it all, she deserves more than the memory of her desecration. Catherine Parr was a woman of formidable intellect, the first English queen to publish books under her own name, a political mind trusted to govern as regent in Henry's absence, a reformer whose influence helped shape the religious identity of a kingdom in turmoil. She guided Henry's fractured family back toward reconciliation, laying the groundwork for Elizabeth's rise as one of England's greatest monarchs. She was more than Henry's last wife. She was a survivor, a strategist, a queen whose legacy stretches far beyond her grave.